In this video, we want to look at STIHL starting systems, and in particular, the systems that we use to start the various petrol engines in our range. There are four main systems that we use. There's the standard system, sometimes referred to as a hard choke system. The throttle integrated system, that is sometimes referred to as a soft choke system. We have the STIHL M-tronic with its unique start position, and STIHL injection. Each one of these systems has a slightly different method or approach to starting, so we will go through this in more detail. The standard hard choke system is the traditional, more old school way of starting two-stroke engines, in particular handheld smaller two-stroke engines like in our industry. On our chainsaws and some of our other products, we have what we refer to as our master control lever, and this allows us to integrate the on-off switch, any fast idle settings, and the choke mechanism all into the one lever. So for us, typically there are four positions of operation. There is 0 for the off, I for run, then there is the fast idle position, and then there is the choke position. The throttle integrated soft choke system has the choke mechanism integrated into the throttle system, so that when you place it into choke and if you squeeze the throttle trigger it automatically jumps out of the choke position. And why this is quite important is it means that we don't utilize a hard aggressive choke system. That's why we refer to it as a soft choke, and we have to have a fuel primer. So not all machines that have a primer bulb are an indication that they have a soft choke, but more often not, if there is a primer bulb there, we don't need to have as hard aggressive choke system, which means we can reduce the risk of the engine being flooded. Part of the challenges with the standard old school system is that if you don't know what you're doing, if you keep cranking the engine over at the wrong time while it's in the choke position, you can fill the engine up with fuel. So the benefit of the throttle integrated soft choke system is a much softer choke system. It uses the primer bulb to get the fuel up out of the tank, up into the carburetor. That means you don't have to crank on the starter rope as many times to start it to get the fuel there, and you don't have to have a hard aggressive choke to achieve that. The next system is the STIHL M-tronic system with its start position. And this is what we would refer to as an intelligent starting system. When you have that little black triangle, when it's in that position, the onboard control unit will manage the starting requirement. So this is much more reduces any operator error, and risk of flooding is dramatically reduced, provided the operator can crank on the starter rope at fast enough speed. Then there should be no chance of being able to flood that engine. And then finally, the STIHL injection system is hands down the smartest of them all. Absolutely just a single stage process. Turn the machine on. There is a primer bulb on these as well that must be pumped away at. Turn the machine on, pump the primer, crank the rope, and the machine starts. So just to look a little bit more at the standard starting system and the use of a hard choke. We've got the BG50, turn the machine on. There is a primer bulb in this one, so we'll pump that to get the fuel into the carburetor. Then we put the choke into the choke position, crank the engine over. It fires, but then it floods itself out, so we have to take it off choke. So this system required two separate stages in its cold start. The first stage was choke on, crank the engine until it would run the gas inside, and then it would flood itself out. At that point, we had to take the choke off and then had to start it again to clear itself to normal run. The risk here again for some operators of machines that don't understand this procedure, and what's happening will often struggle to know when they should or shouldn't apply choke and the risk of flooding it. This brings us to the soft choke system with the throttle integrated soft choke. The benefit here is a system that is much less prone to flooding and a system that is not two separate stages. More often than not, you can get this system running with just one single stage. Primer bulb as well in this system. It's really important that we use the primer bulb with soft chokes. Put it into the choke position. And what we saw there is that it didn't just flood itself out when it fired up. It kept on running and long enough for you to squeeze the throttle trigger, which returned the choke back to the open position automatically. And it meant that it was a single stage start procedure versus having those two separate stages. Now we look at the STIHL Mtronic system with its intelligent start position. To the black triangle position at the bottom, decompression valve applied, crank it over. A single stage or process required. You can do this whether the engine's hot or cold. Provided we crank the engine over at sufficient speed, there should be no risk of flooding. And then finally, STIHL injection, the full intelligent starting and benefit of injection. Important is that we pump this primer bulb because it sets the fuel pressure required in the injector and removes all air. Around 8 pumps is typical. Starts and runs. There is no fast idle setting to be activated, no on setting in this case to even be set, and certainly no choke to worry about. That procedure works for all starting situations, whether it be hot or cold. So in summary, we can see there the 4 systems at play. The old school standard hard choke system with its limitation and around having to have pretty good technical competency in knowing when and when not to use a choke. So that poses some challenges for some operators. The throttle integrated soft choke system, which it dramatically improves the risk of flooding. It's not foolproof, of course. So then our more intelligent systems such as the Mtronic with its intelligent start position, and then the STIHL injection system, which is simply on off